So we're here at the Eastman booth at the NAMM show, 2020 NAMM show, and we're very excited about our new 850 series Roof St. George saxophones. This is the complement to the 52nd Street saxophone that we've been producing for about a decade now. And that saxophone sound concept was definitely geared towards people looking for a more vintage, like an American vintage sound, a bit broader than a lot of what all the other manufacturers had kind of been going towards, which is another legendary saxophone, which is the Mark VI, and that's what everyone kind of had tried. So when we started our saxophones, we wanted to do something a little different, so we went towards like a con vibe sound, concept. But we did need the other part of it, the counterpart of it, so that's where the 850, our Roof St. George series comes in, and it's a much more traditional looking instrument, at least from far away, but then when you get a bit closer, our 850, you see that there's a lot of difference and improvements that we've actually done. Being the parent company of Haynes Flutes, we utilize the technology and craftsmanship that they have there with David Schapani, who's the head of the stringing department. If you don't know what stringing means on the flute, which I did not before I worked here, it means it's the people who actually get the body tube and put all the ribs and the posts and the keys and that stuff. So he's definitely part of manufacturing the flutes, and he's also the head of the R&D there. So he's actually a saxophone player and a very like a saxophone geek of the highest level, and I mean that in the most loving way. He's trades vintage horns weekly throughout his 20s and 30s, so like he's one of those type of guys who's pretty much had every instrument, and he's always looked at the saxophone mechanism and the design of the keywork and wanted to improve it. So we gave him the opportunity. We sent him a saxophone that we made in our Eastman owned factories, and it was kind of all not put together, unlacquered, all that stuff, and he just went to town and started making pieces literally in his basement from blocks of brass. Yeah, it's really cool. And then we sent that back to our factory. They kind of reverse engineered what he did. Then over the course of several trips, different places in the country, having different people play them, and also going back to the factory in mainland China and working with them to improve what they had done. We came out with our 850 Alto, which has actually showed up at last year's NAMM, and then we just came out with the 850 tenor, which showed up this last few months. We've been developing that one throughout the year. So here's some of the specific differences and changes that he's done to the normal saxophone mechanism and keywork. You'll see a lot happening right here. Some really beautifully sculpted side touches, and everywhere your finger basically touches, we've really kind of changed. You'll see, visually I think it looks beautiful, but also functionally we really worked for the placement on everything. This Trill F is very comfortable. I know it's a lot smaller footprint than most, but it's right where it needs to be. And the people that we have working here on our saxophone line all have different size hands, so we try to make sure everyone's happy with it. And you'll see this is really beautiful sculpting, very rounded edges, very comfortable side keys here. And then if I flip the sax, well, you see also we added this low C sharp. Not sure.
Yeah, look at that.
That's something that you saw on old horns, and we got rid of it, and I'm not sure why. So we added that back on. You'll see some of the, some visual things are really, I think, stunning. The way he did the key guards, took a lot of the material out, made it a little bit more elegant looking. Really very happy with the engraving that we're doing, some hand engraving at our factory. And then if we
look at that.
Yeah. So a lot of modern horns are coming with the 3-point bell brace. We moved to the 2-point bell brace. It definitely helps open up some of that vibration that you feel when you're playing the instrument. This is really, I think, really nice. That's another David Schapani design right there. This was his design right here as well. We move over to the left-hand stack right here. You'll see that the key touches are silver-plated brass inserts, and we did that. A little bit of a nod to the flute, but it actually feels very comfortable the way it feels on the hand. You'll see there's a lot of sculpting that happens right here.
That looks amazing. That's new. You don't see that on really any saxophone.
No, and the funny thing is David Schapani had this as his idea, and one of our saxophone specialists, Roger Greenberg, on his Mark VI tenor, that he doesn't play anymore. No. Yeah, he played for decades. He actually has he had someone put a pearl on it, and it gives that same feel. The really good thing is it's a little raised, so it makes that transition so much easier. Yeah. It kind of puts your finger in a position to where it's easier to go between the C sharp and the B. The B. And then you'll see also even on the side palm keys, these are individually sculpted. Every other saxophone that I've seen, these are basically the same piece, just glued, soldered on 3 different ways. They're offset, they're sculpted to kind of help mold to the hand. It feels very comfortable in your hand where they're at. Another really cool feature is the octave left-hand thumb rest octave mechanism that he put on there. It's super easy. You don't really notice it physically when you first touch it. Visually, obviously, it's pretty different, but it's so comfortable. And then I take you to the last feature here, which is really, I think what kind of really sets this instrument apart from anything else ever been made, is this mechanism that he put here. Most saxophones come with like a foot that comes onto the bar. This is actually borrowed from pinless flute mechanisms design, which I'll argue is something that the flute looked at the sax and, well, they don't use pins, so let's not use pins. But they did it in a much more elegant way than the sax community has. And it's also on the right hand stack as well.
Yeah, that's really different.
It is, and it really gives to, I think what makes this instrument feel so comfortable in the hands. The mechanism, for one, the mechanism is very quiet, but it's super fast and super light. It just feels so much more comfortable in the hands, and the action's so fast, it really just feels so good when you're playing it. So that's the visual aspects of the instrument. Mechanically, or the way they make it, that's actually, I think, kind of another cool story in that Eastman's the parent company of S.E. Shire's Custom Brass Instruments. They're based out of the Boston area as well. And probably people, why are you talking about a trumpet company when we're talking about saxophones? Yeah. But when that purchase happened, we actually sent a lot of the craftsmen over to our Eastman factories in China to teach them how to improve the processes. They really taught them what to do to get the brass to vibrate more, and in the way that you spin a bell for trumpet and trombones, like everything. Well, this is a bell that gets spun too. So they learned how to do that. The way you do your crooks, the way you do your bows on your instruments, those all make a huge difference in the way the instrument's going to respond and play. So the Eastman Brass, the Shire's Brass Company went to our Eastman Brass factories and taught them some much more improved ways on how to manipulate and treat the brass. And that helped our tuba project, which we've been doing for 6-7 years now. And a lot of what they learned on how to make better tubas transfer over to how, when we started making saxophones about 3 years ago, in our own factories. So the way we make our bottom bow, our bell, the tube, we use all sheet brass, hand hammering, annealing, all these things that you probably hear people talk about. It does make a difference. It really makes a difference in the way that the horn vibrates and the resonance and the feedback. When you're playing it, maybe someone doesn't hear the difference so much 50 feet away from you, but as a player, anything that kind of helps you feel more in tune and more comfortable with the instrument, kind of get some of the stuff in your head out and lets you play more.
Right.
So our goal is to get the instrument to not be a factor that you're thinking about, so try to make it as natural as possible.